Welcome to African Legacy. I am Musa Ibrahim. Julius Nyerere in the 1950s led the collective liberation movement that founded the country of Tanzania as we know it today. He achieved this against a background of violent colonialism that went on for decades, oppressing the local African population and robbing the land. Today, my guest, Julius Nyerere's son, Madaraka Nyerere, is working to preserve the legacy of his father and his collective movement, the legacy of liberation, social justice, and African unity. He is a founding member of the Forum for the Descendants of the Great Historical Leaders of African Liberation. It includes members from the family of such African icons like Nelson Mandela of South Africa, Nasser of Egypt, Samora Machel of Mozambique, and many others. But can Madaraka and his colleagues, his brothers and sisters, connect the past with the present, old liberation politics with Africa's contemporary reality? And can he reach the hearts and minds of young generations in Tanzania, his country, and the young in the whole of the continent of Africa? Brother Madaraka, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What ignites the fire in your heart? What makes you go on and keep doing this work decades and decades after the start of the revolution in Tanzania?
Well, there are two things which I think have placed me where I am right now. First, it's a realization that the younger generation now is overwhelmed with information. They receive a lot of information. Not all of that information is relevant to our history. And so I meet regularly, I meet young people who have very little knowledge of our history and who I think need some of us who have that link with the past to connect them with this history, because it's our history. We have to acknowledge it. We have to be proud of it. And I think part of my work is exactly that, to link the history that we have, including my father's legacy, to the younger generation. But the other second part is that it's like I'm in this by accident, because after my father died in 1999, I moved back to the village. And when I moved back to the village, where he's also buried, I realized that there's a lot of information on him that he left, including his papers, his books. And so I thought this is something that has to be shared with other Tanzanians and with other people who are interested in that history.
Well, let's explore the relevance of your father's legacy to the reality of Africa today. So tell us more about the work that you have been carrying out in Tanzania before we move on to the Pan-African level.
Yes, as I mentioned, after he died, I moved back to the village where he was born and where he's buried. And
what's the name of the village?
Butiama. It's called Butiama. It's in north Tanzania, northwestern Tanzania, near Lake Victoria.
Yes.
So soon after he was buried, there were a lot of visitors who had a lot of interest to come to visit Butiama. A lot of Tanzanians came to visit Butiama.
As a sign of respect?
Yes, as a sign of respect, as a sign of respect to his legacy. And I and my sister and one of my sisters realized that we must organize these visits so that when the visitors come to Butiama, there is a guide who provides some information, some basic information on Mwalimu Nyerere, his history, his legacy. And so that's how I got into this work of preserving his legacy. Now, as I went on and as the years passed, I realized that a visitor who goes through the compound and then completes the tour within 30 minutes is different from a visitor who really wants to dig deep into the legacy of Mwalimu Nyerere. So this is what I'm concentrating on right now, that we have to provide each type of visitor a good experience so that they are satisfied with the information that they have requested once they visit the...
So it is more than just cultural tourism.
Yes.
You would like to engage with the visitors.
Yes.
And make them aware of how relevant Julius Nyerere's legacy to today's Tanzania. And the great leader, Nyerere, he had his social philosophy of justice, of change, education, health for all. And he believed in the social structure of Africa and that solutions need to be organic from within. How is this important to Tanzania today in terms of facing its challenges, economic and social and foreign and internal? How could Julius Nyerere help?
I believe those policies never run out of date. They never become irrelevant. The only challenge that we face is that, for example, after he stepped down in 1985, we had the structural adjustment policies which affected some of the policies that he had put in place. And gradually, you know, there were demands to change the system from a socialist system to one which is market-driven. And we know the challenges of market economies. They don't always make sure that everybody is taken care of. So, unfortunately, we are also the victims of these demands by these Western agencies to change our policies to fit those...
And the structure of the society to fit the IMF and the World Bank. Julius Nyerere famously opposed foreign aid and the dependence on foreign debt. And he wanted to initiate economic development from within with the simple means that an African country has. He also initiated the program of land reform, agricultural. So most of his philosophy was based on an African concept from within Africa. And he tried to link that to an idea of Pan-Africanism. Is this relevant today when most African countries are relying on the World Bank and the IMF and on foreign debt and foreign aid?
You know, one of the basic objectives of Pan-Africanism is really to unite all the African peoples and peoples of African descent to work together collectively to harness the resources of the African continent, to make sure that those resources benefit the people and bring about social, economic, and industrial development. So it is unfortunate, really, that I think some of our countries are distracted by the supposed assistance that we are supposed to receive from these other countries. But I have the opinion that if a country has a leading position economically, it rarely will give up that position willingly. Mm-hmm. So to expect that those countries which are holding those positions will yield their advantages, I think is unrealistic. So the only realistic way in which I think Africans can develop themselves is to come together as a continent, to put together the resources, ensure that those resources really benefit Africans and not become agents of other countries, which really their only interest is to exploit the African continent.
And Nyerere wasn't just a hard economist. He had a substantial spiritual and moral, ethical side to himself personally and to his policies. He was a Christian, and he wanted to build up an African philosophy of ethics through his social change built on morality, on the African family, on the cohesion of society. And he articulated this in his writings and his speeches. Does this side of his personality and his work, does it resonate true to today's Africa and today's young generation?
As I said in my opening statement, we have a problem of being overwhelmed, the younger generation, being overwhelmed by values and information from other societies.
From outside of Africa.
From outside of Africa. So this is the problem. We risk losing those values, those humanitarian values, those values of justice that we had in the past, if we don't make a big effort to show that there is an alternative way to how we organize our societies. So this is why I think it's really important that we take on the task of showing these young people that there are more alternatives to how we organize society than the ones that you constantly receive through social media and through other avenues of information.
And your father wasn't a lone figure. He was part of a global South movement for liberation and change that extended from Latin America to Africa to the south of Asia. How does this help understand the bigger picture for the young generations of Africans? So, for example, Africans are inspired by such figures like Nasser of Egypt or Mandela of South Africa or Lumumba of the Congo. Does your father, become part of this kind of picture of liberation, image of change that comes from within? Do you think he contributes to this general picture?
I think he does. He's of that generation of the 60s and 70s of leaders, the type of leaders that you mentioned, and he played an important role, I think, together with his colleagues, in creating an environment that also reflected the prevailing conditions within those countries which were promoting this system. So he remains relevant because, as I mentioned, the only way that we can address our challenges is really to look inward. Absolutely. To look inward, not to expect someone from outside to come and solve the challenges that we have. And the leaders of that generation, I think, were leaders who were determining policies based on the prevailing conditions in their own countries and in their own regions. So I think it's really relevant to, it was relevant then and it still is relevant even now.
Is it normal for someone who worked so hard for decades to advance their own nation to make mistakes? Mistakes were made on the economic level, social level, possibly cultural level. Do you think it's okay for the new generations of Africans to dig deep into this legacy in the positive way that you wish for, but to also be critical of the mistakes, correct them, not to repeat them, and learn the lessons from them?
I think, let me tell you, when we got independence in 1961, 1 year later, my father wrote a small booklet called, in Swahili it's Tujisaishe, but I'll explain what the contents of the book are, because I don't have an easy...
The beautiful language of Swahili.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have a direct translation to English. And in that book, he says, leaders are not infallible. They make mistakes. So it's not a problem to make a mistake. It's a problem not to admit that you have made a mistake. So
would you interact with young Africans nowadays,
yes,
who would have a dialogue with you,
yes,
and who would discuss these mistakes,
yes,
and would analyze these mistakes?
Most certainly, because, as I said, humans are born to make mistakes. And just because someone is a president or a prime minister or a minister doesn't mean that they cannot make errors in decisions, in policy, and in other levels of leadership. So we have to be, but he doesn't, in that book, he doesn't speak just about the leaders. He also tells the people that you also have a responsibility to tell your leader that they have made a mistake, because you might be, for example, someone who is supporting a particular leader, but you don't want to tell that leader that they are making a certain mistake, and by keeping quiet, you are really not allowing the full specter of society to be part of that process of sharing ideas and allowing the best possible ideas to come forward and help development.
And now you are working with other descendants of Africa's great leaders to establish this forum called African Legacy, which extends the whole continent. Tell us a bit about this forum, which is under creation, isn't it? What is the idea behind it? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, the idea is that as we look back at history and at our founding fathers, our founding leaders, we know there are important lessons that we can carry forward to the next generation. So, in a nutshell, we are trying to link the past with the present and the future.
Are you trying to be teachers or engage in a dialogue, a two-way dialogue with young Africans? I'm concerned about this, whether you are doing it the old-fashioned way of just teaching without listening, or whether you are prepared to engage in a genuine dialogue with the younger generations of Africans who, of course, have new ideas and they are influenced by different sources of information, as you yourself mentioned.
It should be a dialogue, because we have certain information from the past, from history, that they don't have. They have some new ideas which we are maybe too old to grasp. So it has to be a dialogue, because as my father pointed out in some of his policies, especially on education, he said the important task of adults, one of the important tasks of adults, is to provide an education to the younger generation so that they have the necessary skills to become leaders of the future. So when I speak of education, I don't mean impose an education on the younger generation, but I mean to have that dialogue that you mentioned, so that together we create a future that's beneficial to both the current and the future generation.
But today we are here in the beautiful city of St. Petersburg, 2 days before the Russian-African summit. On the international stage, Africa engages with all parties. And South Africa, for example, a leading African nation, is part of the BRICS group. Can Africa engage in a peaceful, productive, and fruitful relationship with countries from the global south, such as India, Brazil, China, and with an international power like Russia, while maintaining its independence and maintaining its presence as a force for good and for peace in the world?
You know, after my father stepped down in 1985, he became, he was given the task by the non-aligned movement to lead the South Commission, which was an organization or let's say a commission tasked with studying the economies of what became to be known now as southern countries, the southern countries, study the economies, look at the challenges, and suggest solutions to problems of underdevelopment. So one of the basic conclusions that came out of that report, which was released after they completed the work, was the southern countries have to work together, because the barriers that are placed by the northern countries to development cannot be surmounted without having a strong base of countries that begin to pose some muscle. They begin to create some economic muscle against the northern countries. So the suggestion that the question that you're asking is really, I think that's the only way to go. In addition to, I mentioned also the importance of Africa coming together, but then also Africa working together with the global south.
With the rising economy.
Yes, that's right.
That would provide Africa with alternative ways of funding its developmental projects and helping its political cohesion as one continent.
That's right, because as I mentioned, the hold that the northern countries have on the global economy, it's not something that they will give up willingly.
Monopoly is hard to give up.
Yeah, you have to...
It's very profitable.
Yes, yes. So you have to fight for it. And the only way you can fight for it is uniting. Yeah, as Africa and as the global south.
What is your message, personal, heartfelt message, to young Africans in Tanzania and in every corner of the continent? If they are listening to you right now, away from the formal language of politics, from heart to heart, what would you say?
I would say, first, it's really important to know our history. That's really important.
History of victimization only, or of resistance as well?
All the history which is relevant to our continent. I'll tell you why. Because if you don't do that, if you don't know your history, then it's really difficult to first to pick out the success stories in history, there are several, many. There are many success stories in African history. But then if you're not a student of history, and I don't mean this academically, just someone who's interested in history, then you tend to be the victim of other societies which will provide an alternative that does not show that there are many possibilities within the African continent. And once you realize that, then you know that the future is bright. But now if you concentrate on receiving information that shies away from pinpointing the success stories of within African history, then you really are not harnessing the weapons with which you can face the future. So, for example, you know, the fact that Africa managed to liberate itself between the early 60s and the mid 80s I think that's a really important achievement, which the
young generations maybe don't recognize.
They don't realize, and they don't realize the shared history that we have throughout the African continent. That people, that leaders in Algeria, in Egypt, also contributed towards the liberation of.
Absolutely, figures like Nasser of Egypt and Ben Bella and others helped their brothers and sisters in the south of the continent in their fight for independence.
Yeah, so it's really important to know the history, to know the shared history, because with the shared history, then you realize that, oh, we are not just East Africans. We're not just Tanzanians. We're not just Kenyans. We are Africans.
Part of a bigger story.
Yeah, the story is much larger than what you imagine. So with that shared history, I think it's possible for a young person in any African country to imagine a bright future, to imagine a future where they can make a difference in their own development and in their country's development and in their continent's development.
Well, as a journalist, I'm going to watch very closely what you are going to achieve in the future, and whether you practice what you preach in connecting with the young generations of Africans. You know, most of them exist on TikTok and social media, so probably you need to go there as well to talk to them and engage with them and listen to them.
I will do that.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Brother Madaraka.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was an interview with Madaraka Nyerere, the son of the great Tanzanian leader Julius Nyerere, discussing the legacy of liberation of the continent and its relevance to today's politics in Africa. Thank you.